Okay, we're recording now. We're going to go ahead and get started. Let me see what we got. Okay, we got our screen share up there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I will look forward, and if anyone goes ahead and joins, I'll be happy to receive you, naturally, as I always am. However, right now I'm the only one on the call, or on the Zoom room, as we call it. So I'm just going to go ahead with a little bit of the lecture and the guidance, and add a little bit more, if you will, of the application part of it that I think I can offer, that goes a little bit beyond or maybe adjacent to the material that you have in the Explore sections. And I've said it the last 2 or 3 weeks, probably every week since the beginning. I really am grateful for the material they have for you, that Central Christian College of Kansas has for you in the Explore section. The PowerPoint presentations, along with the ample videos that they have there that you can look at and go back and explore and review if you don't quite understand it or just need to go back and review some things. So I don't take any credit for that. I'm not sure if you know how it all works, but all that is loaded in there by some kind of a curriculum specialist or someone from the college, and I inherit those things. And I could not have done a better job. I probably could not have done a job as good as they do in putting together those materials. I'm grateful for that, because that really helps you clearly, tremendously. Most of you in this class have done very, very well. I think back to the first couple of weeks, and there seemed to be some trepidation by many of you in taking a course on statistics. Many of you are interested more in the social sciences than you are in mathematics. But we need this. We need statistics when we study any part of the social sciences. It is absolutely imperative that we have a reliable form and method, if you will, to analyze our results. Otherwise, it's just your opinion, and things can get very confused. I think that at this point in the course, you see that. So I go back again, as I started to say in the first couple of weeks, and you've worked hard. Clearly, you've put a lot of effort into this, and you've come a long way, as they used to say in that commercial. You've come a long way. So, and I also think back to, when I was an undergraduate student, and I took a course that they designed. This is way back in the late 70s. And it used to be that you'd have to take statistics along with everyone else, the math majors and architectural majors and folks of that, persuasion, if you will. And they, at that point, where I was at, in the college I was at, they designed a course that was just as rigorous, but it was designed for social science majors, such as this one is, or people who are interested in social sciences at least. And they designed that to explain statistics, not just in terms of theory, but in terms of application as well. So that those students, myself, and now you folks, can see the value of statistics in our chosen area, whether that's the social sciences or social psychology, social work. Whatever that might be, you see the value of statistics. I also want to point out that when I'm teaching like a psychology course, when I teach general psychology or social psychology, I make it very clear to students that it is a science. Psychology is a philosophy. You can make that case, but we also have to at least include it as a science. And I think by now at this part of the course, you're starting to see that. Otherwise, again, it's just common. People can just say it's common sense. What we find in psychology and social psychology is a lot of it is contrary to common sense. some of the things that we do that are most effective, you wouldn't think to do. And I'm not going to go into any examples. I don't think right now, unless one just pops in my head, that would be very appropriate. But um, when looking at, oh, yeah, for example, okay, there's a lot of people in law enforcement in this course. There's 2 or 3 or 4, something like that, and I'm pretty sure that all of us in here are very grateful for their service. There's also some retired military, which I'm exceedingly grateful for their service. Um, but one of the things that that I've been sort of studying along with, 'cause I'm always looking at something that looks a lot at statistics, if you will. I've been reading a lot this past couple of weeks about what we're going to call them, false confessions. People who have admitted to crimes that they did not commit, and then the ones I'm talking about are without question they've through DNA evidence or through some other evidence that they didn't have at the time that's more reliable. They found out that the person did not commit said crime, yet they confessed to it. Like, how can that possibly be? So that doesn't make any sense at all, and that's what happens with juries a lot of times. And we talked about that in some of you did in your posts. If I see someone, common sense tells me if somebody admitted to a crime, they obviously did it. There's no logical reason for someone to admit to something that they didn't do. But we know through statistics that this does happen from time to time. So psychology and social psychology is not always common sense. And now we have proof from statistics and other data. And we find out that more often than not, false confessions occur after, I think it's like 16 hours of interrogation. So when people confess within an hour, yeah, they typically did it. They listen. I don't know what I did. I'm just going to confess to it right now. We can typically count on those confessions to be pretty accurate, within a reasonable amount of certainty. But when we have the information that someone was questioned for 16 hours, sometimes 16 hours straight, those sometimes those confessions are also valid and worthy, and that's what the law enforcement folks would sort of say, yeah, we they have a tough job, no doubt about it. And of course, criminals typically aren't the most honest people. They don't come in and say, yeah, I did it. So we all of course want a safe society. So how do we balance that out? Like, we certainly don't want people to confess to crimes they didn't commit, because one, that's wrong, and two, the criminal's still out there somewhere doing his dastardly deeds or doing her dastardly deeds, perhaps. So we want to avoid that. So when that's another way we can apply statistics to social sciences in real time and in real world application, not just some theory that's out there. So that example did come to mind as something I've been. I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute when we look at what we have going on this week. And I was just reviewing your final project and your discussion questions that you have to do, and we look at the difference or the relationship, pardon the pun, between correlation and regression and those kinds of things. Certainly, if we had shown you this 6 weeks ago, I'm sure you would have run out screaming in the streets. Some of you, not all of you, some of you may have, or maybe you wouldn't have. I don't know. Maybe that's not fair. But some of the terms that we're throwing around now and the symbols that you're seeing now, like I'm sure that it's still not maybe the most comfortable to many of you, but it is something that doesn't scare you away at this point. And if we had showed that to you some weeks ago, I'm sure it would have been, I'll never get this, but here you are, just 5 weeks later at this point. And as I said, most of you are doing very, very well and have hit the mark. You may have heard me say this. I've said it. You may not have heard about it. I've said it. We don't expect you to come out of this 6-week course being a statistician, but we want you to have an appreciation for the importance of gathering data, not just opinions, And because that's what the world tells you, right? Oh, psychology, that's just a bunch of hooey. That's just common sense. Just, that's just your opinion. No, we actually have science to back this up. We have statistics to back this up, and no scientist worth his weight will ever tell you that they have proven anything. And that leads into what I'm going to talk about in a minute as well. Whether it's a medical doctor or a pathologist or a astronomer or a physicist, they never prove anything. They talk about there's a likelihood, there's a high probability that this will happen. I'm going to go with it. And, you don't, then you go with it as if it were a proof almost. But, there's mathematical proofs, but there are no scientific proofs. Not that, we don't talk about scientific proofs. We talk about probability. Now, and I mentioned early on, if you take two atoms or 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, and put it together, you're going to get water, H2O. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, you're going to get water. Every time, if the lab's clean, everything else is clean, it'll be pure water. We in the social sciences don't have that luxury. We don't always have a clean lab. In fact, we never have a clean lab. There are many other mitigating factors that influence human behavior. So, the chances, that we're going to get this, like Robert Cialdini, I'm going to reference again in a minute. He mentions that, never do we say if we phrase words a certain way as a leader that we're always going to get 100% compliance. No, we're going to use certain words to increase our compliance of our followers. He's big on influencing. But whenever, that's the other sort of knock on the social sciences is, yeah, that's not always true. No, it's not always true. But I can use certain interventions to increase the likelihood something will happen. I can use certain interventions to increase compliance. I can use certain interventions in my parenting, in my leadership, in my management styles that is going to get more people to comply with my request or my direction. So, and that's what we want. We'd rather have more than less, correct? I mean, obviously. But don't start thinking in terms of absolutes in anything. And that leads into a little bit I'm going to talk about today, which is correlation. And Robert Cialdini, you may be familiar with him. He's a fantastic social scientist. And he writes for the general population, which I like because as students, and one of the reasons you're taking this course, journal articles are fantastic for many people, but they do get very dry, even for academics such as myself. So Cialdini uses the research, but he writes in a way that is more acceptable to the general audience and more easily digested, if you will. But he bases his writing on scientific research and data using statistics. So one of the things that he writes about that I've been paying close attention to in the past couple of weeks is he makes a great point that in the area of influence, typically, 2 things here I'm going to talk about. Typically, the general public assigns a greater weight to correlation than they should. What I'm getting at is this: the general public oftentimes sees correlation as causation. Okay, the difference is this: correlation means that there's a relationship between these 2 variables. Okay, so might be that the more time away from the office I have, the happier I am. Okay, so that there may be a correlation. So they measure someone's time away from the office, for example, and then they get a report of how happy that person reports to be. And okay, so there's a correlation, but Is being away from the office what causes the happiness? Could be, maybe not, maybe not. What other factors are out there? And this is what's important for you to start to think about. I guess maybe the if I was going to say one thing that I hope comes out of this course for you, is that you become keenly aware of the importance of and become a better critical thinker. To look at things in a critical manner, like to really look and discern, okay, is being away from the office what makes them happy or her happy? Or is it the fact that when they're away from the office, they're with their family? So is it time away from the office, or is it time with the family? Or is it time away from their boss? Would this relationship, correlation or relationship be the same if they worked for a different boss or had different coworkers or colleagues? There are a lot of other factors that go into that, but the general population can easily assign causation to what is simply a correlation. And Cialdini, in his most recent book called Persuasion, he's using a little jargon there, created a word, I guess is a better way to put it, points out that we assign a heavier weight to that, and we want to be aware not to do that from a consumer standpoint, as well as now on the other end of it, on a scientific standpoint, as an academic. You want to make very sure that you don't do that, because you want to, you can say about the correlation, but you have to be very aware that that may not be the cause. I'll give you an example. Okay, so my dissertation was on job satisfaction. Okay, that's very broad. So I had to narrow that down. So I narrowed it down to elementary school classroom teachers' job satisfaction as it correlates to class size. Class size is defined as number of students in their class, because classroom teachers at the elementary level, kids don't switch classes, they all stay together, so they have those same kids for the entire day. Now, ultimately, what I was trying to get at was relationships, because if you know anything about me, that is the foundation of everything. It's relationships, relationships, relationships. So it was, when I look at how to measure things, and again, my committee had some things to say about it, which I didn't always agree with, but I wanted to graduate, so I just went along with them. Hey, word of the wise. So I looked at, I had a tool that I measured, the MSQ, which measures job satisfaction and some other things. It looked at various factors: collegiality, buy-in from leadership, autonomy, many things. But one of the, so I looked at, and I measured their job satisfaction, and I compared that to class size. What I found was there was a correlation between class size and job satisfaction, elementary school teacher job satisfaction. I'm going to get into the scale in a minute. It seemed that there was a negative correlation. So the fewer students teachers had, the higher their job satisfaction was. So that's a correlation. Did that cause their job satisfaction to be higher? Too many other mitigating factors. But it gave us some idea in terms of that may be one of the reasons, or it may not be. But we did know that based on the population, the sample that I had, best I could do, the sample that I had, which was a good sample, about 80, and they were all, and I generalized to a population that was similar to them, in the same area and things like that. So the sample I had, fewer kids, higher job satisfaction. Okay, because there was also some, and I had to write in here, the limitations was that also related to teachers that taught younger grades. Their job satisfaction likewise was higher. One thing is they have fewer kids in the class, but is it because it was fewer kids, because the age is different? Is it because it's the material is different? Too many other mitigating factors to say for sure that class size causes, or fewer kids in the class causes, job satisfaction increase. Okay, we can't say that, but we don't have to. We're not trying to do everything in the world. So when you do your studies and these things we're talking about, you're just simply showing a correlation. Let those readers do with it what they will, and you can do with it what you will, and do further study. There's always further studies to be done. So we look at correlation. Is it a positive correlation? So positive would be job satisfaction increases as number of students increase. Okay, a positive correlation. Or is it negative? Job satisfaction increases as number of students go down. Okay, or was there no correlation? Hopefully you don't end up with no correlation. That's the worst thing you hope for. Or the least thing you don't want to have happen. You don't want no correlation, because a lot of work, you're expecting something, and ideally you'll guess right whether it's a positive or negative. But if it's opposite, if you expect a negative, you got positive, like you can go, wow, what's going on here? Let me see what's happening here. So those are the things that I talk about. So when you graph something, let me just show you just in a graph form here. This is in your presentation, okay? So when there's a high correlation, you'll see everything's close together. Almost right on that line. You draw your regression line there, it goes right up there. Low correlation, you can see, yeah, there's a correlation. But is it strong? Is it high or low? It doesn't look all that, it's not as tight as you can see in the first one. And then of course the on the far right there, basically the circle shows no correlation. It's just random, you can't really even, you can't even draw lines with that, right? So that's what it looks like in a graph. So anyway, no one else chimed in here, so I'm going to go ahead. I mean, there's, I can go on and on and on, but I do want to commend you. I'll put some text out, I'm sure, some messages out this week, but I want to commend you for the growth and the progress that you've made. You've made it. And many of you in this class should go into graduate school. I'm not sure if that's in your plans, but you've shown me, I've had you in other classes, some of you as well. You've shown me that you could take on graduate school. And I'm just going to give a little commercial for that. When you're a freshman, you go to sophomore. Okay, that's about a year's step. Sophomore to junior, that's about a year's step. Junior to senior in college, that's about a year. Senior to graduate school is a big step. It's almost like I won't say it's a quantum leap, but it's a different thing. You're going to get in a different lane in graduate school. What you do in undergrad will prepare you for that, but it isn't like those linear freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, junior to senior. It's not like that at all. You're going to have to really buckle down. The work is more rigorous. The writing is, you get away with a few things here with APA and things like that. But at the graduate level, no, it has to be almost like ready for publication, all the papers you turn in. I'm not saying it to scare you. It can be done. You just got to, it's a different way of thinking. I did it myself. Okay, I was not an APA writer. I was not a great writer at one point at all. Now I've gotten compliments. I'm not saying I'm a great writer, but I have got compliments along the way. So I've made progress. But APA is not my natural style. I don't talk that way. But you'll have to do that in graduate school, as we all had to. So, but yeah, it's kind of a different lane there. But I do want to say this: graduate school for my master's degree was the easiest thing I did. Wow, what's he talking about? Well, what was the work easier? No, the work was harder. But in your undergrad, you're taking a lot of courses that are great, but don't necessarily apply to what you're going to be doing, in your profession. I love history. I love art history. I even like math. But those things I don't need for what I do directly. So you take about 40, 45 classes in undergrad. Your graduate degree is only about 12 to 15 classes, depending on what you major in. So there's fewer classes. You can do it quicker. Every class you take is going to pertain to something you're interested in, presuming that you go to graduate school, pursuing something that you're passionate about, as I did, and I hope you would too. Additionally, everyone in your class is going to be in a very similar boat, or the same boat that you are. They're all passionate about that as well. So the conversations and the friendships and the collegiality that you have are going to be very much in line with where you're going. So now the PhD is a different story. I'm not going to get into that right now. That was harder. That was a different thing. But as far as going on in your academic career, if you're looking to do something in the social sciences, a graduate degree will really come in handy. So I'll say that, and I'll end it there. It's been great. You know where to reach me. My information is in the syllabus. The best way, of course, I'll mention to you is in the message tab. I check it several times. I checked it this morning. There was something there from one of the students. I was happy to read that message, very happy, and I responded. So let's pray real quick for you. Father in heaven, I'm so grateful for all the students and the progress that we made, and we pray, Father, that we all stay focused, students and me, on your love and mercy and the job that we have and the tasks that we have here. Let them align with your purpose for us, like guide our steps, and let our steps be blessed, that you will show us the way and give us what we need, the talents and the skills we need. We don't have it on our own. Give us the talents and skills we need to fulfill the purpose that you have designed for us, ultimately to spread the good news of your love, mercy, and soon coming. I pray for this for my students. I also pray for their families and their loved ones, that you will bless and keep them as well as my family, Nina, Charlie, and Cecilia, and extended family as well. So I pray this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. All right, everybody. Well done. I'll see you in the course room.